You're welcome to my channel. In today's video, we are going to look at simple recipe for 5 kg of flour. If you want to start a small scale bakery and you are struggling with recipe and the quantities to measure, maybe for your 5 kg or 10 kg, with this recipe that I'm going to give you, it will enable you to bake your commercial bread successfully, smoothly, and the loaf will be fluffy and very smooth. Now, bread baking has rules, and most times we make a lot of mistakes in because of what people say, or because you saw somebody doing one thing or the other, using one pattern. You think that is the ultimate method. For instance, a lot of persons always call me that they are using ice to bake because it makes the bread smooth and rest. That is a lie. It's not always. You don't have to use ice or cold water in order to have good quality or high quality loaf. That is just false, because the real purpose of ice or cold water is to control the activity of the yeast, so that the yeast will not make the dough to overrise when you are still molding. Now, that ice, you use the ice because maybe the area you are is too hot, the temperature is too hot, and so you can control the activity of the yeast by adding ice. But the secret is, if you buy ice, you are increasing the cost. The easiest way is to reduce the quantity of yeast. Rather than icing, you add more yeast and still buy ice to control the activity. Why not reduce the quantity of yeast and then remove the ice? And you have, there is no way the little yeast will make the dough to overrise the way you don't want. And so stop using ice anyhow. Now, if you use ice block and you don't know how to control your oven, your bread will definitely get spoiled within 2 days. The reason is that the inside of your loaf will be cold. The outside, receiving the direct heat, will get brown easily, and then you think that your bread is properly baked, while the inside, because of the temperature, how cold the loaf is, the temperature did not penetrate at the same rate, and so the bread may not be properly baked. Within 2 days, your bread will scatter. That is one of the things that cause, that make your bread to scatter or reduce the shelf life of your bread, and then you start complaining. Now, I want you, if you have been using ice and the result you don't like, just remove the ice, bake natural. Just bake with normal water from the tap or treated water, whichever type of water you use, and you will see the result. So it's not all about using ice. Having established that, let's look at the recipe for 5 kg of flour. Now, if your sugar, you can use 750 grams if you are not using sweetener. Now, because of the cost of things in Nigeria, so many are adding sweetener, and I don't use sweetener, so I don't bother trying to reduce sugar in order to add sweetener. I'm not a fan of sweetener, because sweetener, most of the sweeteners are not good, are not recommended, they are not healthy. And so using sweetener is like causing harm and damage to people's organs and the body. So I don't recommend sweetener, and I will not show you any form of reducing the sugar to replace it with sweetener. And so that is for sugar. Now, you can use this for your sugar, 750 grams. Let's quickly take the yeast. Can be 70 grams. Remember, we are looking at 5 kg of flour. So your butter could be 100 grams, depending on the quality of bread you want to bake. Some persons can still reduce this to 50 grams, no problem. Now, improver depends on the type of improver. Also, there are different types of improvers. Now, we have the EDC as improver. There are so many. Now, EDC is not the only improver. EDC is just a brand. And so, if you're using another improver, no need of combining EDC and another improver the same mixing. No, you will not have good result. So, and you are increasing cost. So, if you're using EDC as improver, don't use another improver. If you're using another improver, to bake, no need of adding EDC. The same thing, go to the softener. If you have a certain softener you are using, and it's giving you good result, no need of changing it to another or combining two or an enzyme. No, use the one that has been working for you and follow it. It will help you. You don't just receive information from somewhere and then you apply it. You just bring this on and add. You see, bread making is not all about bringing recipes anyhow, and because this one is here, this one is here, this one is here, you have good loaf. No, it talks about for you to have quality loaf, you must look at the ratios of combination. So you don't just bring anything that you know that they use in baking bread. Now, if you look at all my recipes, my previous videos, I don't add egg, I don't add milk. Yet my bread is good. If you are in Owerri, if you go to Isaac Group, very close to Cherubim Junction, you will get their bread there. I gave the recipe. I went there for training. I trained the workers. So if you go there, you will see there the quality of bread they have there. Yet we don't use egg, we don't use milk. So you can imagine that. So you can still have good results without combining everything that is applicable to baking. Also, because you watch a certain video on YouTube, somebody baking home bread for my family, I put 4 eggs, 3 eggs. That is for my family. It's different from me trying to bake for sale. It's different because the people that are buying, they don't know what you put inside. All they want is a loaf of bread, and that size of bread is sold so amount. So if you come and say, no, my owners, I add egg and add this, you will explain and get tired. Nobody will buy. So for you to also be in the market, you have to know how you manage your recipe. Now let's go back to the recipe. So we have our softener, 20 grams, depending on the softener, the type of softener you are using. Now if the softener is a liquid, you have to use the cap, just the cap of that, the liquid of the bottle, the cover of the bottle, and take it there to help you. Now we also have a preservative. The preservative, I always use calcium propionate as my preservative. Now we also have your flavor. The flavor, it may be milk flavor, vanilla flavor, all types of flavors in the market. You can also use a banana flavor depending on how you want your bread to taste. Now, some persons combine 2 flavors, 3 flavors, so that their bread will be unique. Some persons combine the milk flavor or the vanilla flavor with a nutmeg. There are those that combine the nutmeg, the milk flavor, and banana flavor. So that is why you see any bread you eat has different and unique taste. So you have to also go back and do your homework of flavor combinations. I've created a video for that, so you can also learn and tap from there. So you have your flavor, and also the water depends on the quantity of water you will use, depends on the type of bread of flour you are using. Is it Dangote, Golden Penny, or whichever type of flour? So it depends on the ability for that flour to absorb more water, and the more water the flour absorb, the more quantity you have. So you have to carefully select the flour you are using. If that flour is not absorbing enough water and also rise and still be thick and strong, then you have to change the brand and buy another one. And then you have your salt, 45 grams. So this is just a recipe for 5 kg. Now let me explain 2 things for you that will help you in your bakery journey as a beginner probably. Now, there are 2 types of mixing. There are 2 ways to mix. It's either you mix the dry mixing or the wet mixing. Although there are those that also combine both and do it the way they want. Now the dry mixing talks about you putting the flour and then measure all this recipe and pour. Then maybe you slow mix the dry flour and the recipe, and then you pour water and press high speed. I'm talking about those that use spiral mix, electric mixer. But for wet mixing, you start with the water. The dry mixing, you start with the flour and then the recipe and you mix. The wet mixing starts with the water. You measure the quantity of water you want, put it, and then put your recipe. Press slow mix. That is why there is slow and there is high speed on the mixer. So you don't just go there and start with the high speed. No, the purpose of slow mix is for recipe. So you bring in your premix, pour it in water, the quantity of water that is required, and then you press slow mix. And the slow mix, take it for at least 5 minutes. You pause and then pour your flour. When you pour your flour, the next thing is for you to press the high speed. And so the high speed will now incorporate the recipe that they have been mixed and the and the flour. I always recommend the wet mix because it enables the ingredients to be well, to dissolve before you add the flour, and that gives you a better consistency and good mixture. So if you want your dough to be that good, you have to just apply the wet mix. Start with water, add the recipe, mix for 5 minutes, add the flour, and then press high speed, mix for at least 15 to 20 minutes, because most persons, you don't allow your dough to be well mixed, and then before you know it, within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you think that the dough is ready. No, there are 3 signs you should actually look at before you remove, before you offload for you to cut and weigh. There are 3 signs that the dough will display to enable you know that this is ready for weighing and panning. Number 1, the dough will gather around the spiral rod. That tells you that it's getting ready. Number 2, there will be lines. When you are turning akamu or pap or custard at home to eat, you are preparing hot akamu. When you stir it, there will be lines. Those lines will equally form inside the mixer. That tells you that the dough is getting ready, but not yet ready. Now, at a point, those lines, initially the lines will be big. At a point, those lines become smaller. It tells you that the mixing is getting really ready. Now, the next step is for you to look at is the fluffy sound. During mixing, the first time that all the flour and the ingredients will come together and the dough will just scatter, and there will be scatter sound. Now, when the dough is getting ready and the smoothness is coming up, you will hear a different sound. That same sound when you are turning akamu and you hear fluffy sound, flop sound. That same sound will be displayed inside the mixer. You will hear the fluffy sound coming out from the dough. That tells you that dough is ready. If you bake a dough like that with the right temperature, remember the right temperature, your dough can never scatter, your bread can never get spoiled like that. So apart from the preservative and you packaging when the bread is hot, this is another problem people face. You just hurriedly package the bread and the bread is hot, and then most of the retailers will still expose the bread to sun. Yeah, but within 2 days that bread will spoil. And so there are rules you have to follow. I also carry out trainings. I can train you online. I can come to your bakery for 1 week and train your workers. So if you want us, you can contact me on the number that is displayed on the screen. I wish you good luck. Try your best. Bakery business is a lucrative business. Thank you for watching. See you in our next video. Bye bye.